Good evening, everyone, and thank you for watching all the performances before me. How often do you try to predict or call scenarios? Is it after every interaction? Once a week? Sometimes? Not at all? In the shower crying, eating a can of beans? Well, no matter if you do or don't regularly, you still have to base those what-if scenarios on the people or things you talk to. Now that might sound a little confusing, but the characterization we give to the images in our mind is based off understanding the tics and demeanors of the people we communicate with, since that causes us to learn more about them. Now, some of you are probably thinking, oh, I don't have any friends, or oh, I don't know anybody that well. And to that, I say absolutely not. We as people are inherently social creatures that try to understand others, which completely contradicts the statements that tend to weigh down the minds of people throughout day-to-day life. Though, if you truly don't have any friends, or you don't know your friends that well, a good thing to do is, well, get to know them. Now, some of you are probably wondering how or why, but I already answered the why, so here's the how. Understanding people through concepts. Now, that might seem broad or even confusing, so I'll give you guys an example that has not only worked throughout my COVID life, but my high school life as well, D&D. Now, what is D&D? I'm sure many of you who have dabbled into role-playing games or looking through memes have heard of it. But for those who haven't, D&D is a tabletop role-playing game played with dice, set in any kind of situation you could possibly imagine. It was created by Gary Gygax in 1974. I know, an awesome name, and also it was, whoops, rambling. I'll get back on topic. Sorry, I'm just so enamored with this game because, well, D&D has been a hobby of mine for well over 3 years now, and has been a place for a lot of creative output to me. It allowed me to put pen to paper or fingers to a keyboard and create a fantastical world with fantastical characters that can break the laws of physics. D&D holds a special place in my heart because of what it is. Not just an escape from the world, but a place to play with soft-spoken people in a calmer environment. To me, it was a place to talk to a tiny group of people every week and forget about the worries of the world for a while, barring schedule conflicts. So many schedule conflicts. Besides that, it let me communicate and interact with people throughout 2020, which is something I cherished and desperately needed. It let me create my own club at school in 2021, and let me talk to my friends better and get to understand them more throughout 2022. While my experience might be different from others, D&D still allowed me to look at a person's choices and start to understand them and how they act during the day-to-day. However, while D&D helped me develop a broad outlook on somebody, the character choices they made helped define the smaller aspects of themselves. Those smaller aspects of themselves, those little hints towards their true personality, took not only a lot of time, but a lot of effort as well. Character choices aren't something you're going to understand automatically, and sometimes you might not get them at all, but you can always learn something about somebody through their choices. One person that I think helped me understand this the most is my friend, Bennett. Bennett was my DM for my second true D&D campaign, and a player with me on a couple of others. However, what astounded me most about him was how he made his characters. He never stuck to one specific class or one specific character concept, and he welcomed change and low stats. He played to the beat of his own drum, which helped cement him in my mind as somebody who likes to experience things. He never held himself to being somebody specific, and instead reached out to try and experience things from a different perspective, which I found admirable. He always liked using bad stats for the sake of making a diverse character, which helped me understand that even if you might be bad at something, that doesn't mean you can't have fun or enjoy it along the way. On the opposite side of this idea of diversity, however, sits now one of my very close friends, Oliver. Oliver often chose the same class for all of his characters, a rogue, and gave his characters the ability to talk themselves in or out of any situation they needed to. That isn't a bad thing, far from it, as it showed me just how devoted he was to learning about one thing in its entirety. His characters were often very cynical and very straightforward, always having a goal and a way to complete it, which showed me that Oliver was a very focused and invested person who was always trying to plan out the next steps in his life. Both Oliver and Bennett just show me how different people can be when it comes down to making choices, either living for a goal or trying to experience everything. And I would never have understood that about them if we were just talking face to face. Now, sure, you're probably thinking, well, yeah, that might work for characters, but that's all too specific for general life. And you're probably right. However, learning about someone through their choices happens all the time in the real world, from clothing to speech patterns, and even through demeanor and work ethic. And I can think of nobody better to illustrate this point than my friend who, for privacy reasons, we'll call Laren. Their first major character choice is the way they make their outfits. Personally, I know how they're feeling the moment I see them, from being straightforward and focused while wearing ties and cardigans, to being chilled back and relaxed, wearing a plain, less detailed, and overall simpler style of outfit. What also helps me understand them is the way they hold themselves. They usually stand up straight with a smile on their face, but often have a very rigid posture, which tells me that they're only comfortable putting out into the world what they want it to see. However, what helps me understand them despite this is how they talk. They often talk very quickly and about many different topics in quick succession with regular references to other media, which tells me that they're not only organized, so they can talk about so many different topics without confusing them for another, but also that they're very imaginative because they can talk about so many ideas and can connect them quite easily. Through all of this, I've come to look at Laren as a very strong-willed person in my eyes. They always seem to buckle down when things get hectic, despite their hesitancy to put out more into the world which might hurt them, which I think emanates strength. Even though they might get nervous when things go to plan and fret when things don't go their way, their quick thinking allows them to stand in the eye of the storm and prosper in spite of all the problems and work they pile onto themselves. Well, that gives you guys some way to look at a regular person's choices and see how they interact with the world. The world itself helps shape and mold the person into what they might do in certain situations. Now, that might seem a little complex, so I'm going to give you guys an example of one of my DM's campaigns and show you not only how they use certain situations to achieve a certain result, but also how they let us see how they perceive situations like that. DMs, or Dungeon Masters, are the creators of the world the players play in, which gives them not only a lot of creative liberty in the genre, but also how the players interact with the world around them. One of the campaigns that helped me understand this concept the most is my friend Elliot's campaign, which finds its roots in gritty realism. In this campaign, there's a lot of the social injustices we see today, but taken up to a far higher level. However, what stood out to me the most was how he had us build our characters and now how he runs the campaign in general. He gives us very little in terms of good equipment, and he leans more full into roleplay than combat. This tells me that Elliot is a very give and take type person who wants to show us that there is more than just one way to interact and solve any situation. He also voices characters in a way that fully shows us their personality, which helps me understand that he doesn't like to hide things and is very upfront, leads to more immersive and understandable roleplay, where we truly have to figure out human nature and not just go around and kill things, as most parties want to do. Through this, I've not only learned how to look at the world with a different eye, but he also allowed me to change my perspective on certain moments and look through a different way through them that I never would have otherwise. Now that I've given you guys an example of a concept you guys can use to help understand people, many of you are probably going, well, I don't do D&D, so how does this help me? And if what I said seemed a little off, here's some quick tips to help speed up your learning process. Look at people while they talk. Look at their body language while they're speaking, since that tells you a lot about them, like if they're more animated or more reserved. Listen to people while they talk. If they're talking quietly, maybe they just had a bad day, or they're a shy or soft-spoken person, and you would never know unless you truly talk to them. Don't let things get misconstrued or lost. If you don't understand something, ask someone for clarification, so it'll give you guys a better understanding of one another. I've used these tips more times than I can count. So it allows people to get comfortable and drop their guards while talking, and allows them to be vulnerable, and for me to be vulnerable back. D&D is just one way that I've used these tips, and that means so much, as it means that there's so many different outlets you can use to help understand people, such as clubs at school, fishing bunnies on a pier, heck, around the water cooler making bad dad jokes. This process of learning about people is hard and slow. You might not get it right away, but if you do, that's great. However, this process takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort that will be needed from both parties involved. Even if you might not get along with someone, still take the time to understand how they think and what they say, so they'll give you more insight into who they are and their thought processes. As I said in the beginning of this speech, learning about people is what we are made to do as part of our human nature. So if you feel alone, you are not. It is so hard to go through this world, in a world where it means so much to have so many relationships. But if you can just make one connection and understand one person, you'll be fine. Since understanding one person allows you to gain a good enough understanding to get to know more people. So find one person you can interact with and get to understand them, because that will help you with the long process of getting to understand more people and making new friends. So I ask, want to be friends? Thank you.